Hello, everyone. I am joined by former West Ham and Manchester City winger, scorer of arguably the greatest overhead kick of all time, and current assistant coach of the Indian national team, Trevor Sinclair. How are you, Trev?
Kim, I'm great, thanks. Thanks for having me on. And thank you for that introduction. Very nice.
It's not a bad introduction, is it? I mean, I do remember when Garnacho scored his overhead kick against Everton. Maybe bias comes into play, but I do remember thinking, not a patch on yours, that one.
I'll take it.
So you've joined up with your former teammate at West Ham, Igor Stimac, out in Qatar for the Asian World Cup. How are you finding it so far?
Brilliant. I mean, listen, I always got on really well with Igor. Very understated player, class act, on and off the pitch, family man. And yeah, he gave me a call out the blue a couple of months ago. Asked me if I was interested, sent me some clips to analyse. Took a few hours analysing them, got back to him, and he went, "Would you like to come and coach me? I know you're coaching." I've spoke to a mutual friend of ours, Joe Morrison, who actually mentored me in Dubai for my media back in 2008 for a few years. And he'd said some good things about me, fortunately. Said I was coaching, and yeah, when he said, "Would you fancy it?" I said, "Absolutely, of course I would." So yeah, I got out here about 2 weeks ago, and loved every minute of it. And that doesn't have to take into consideration the weather and the difference in temperature between here in the northwest of England. But no, it's been brilliant. Very professional, great group of players, really humble, hardworking, talented, and really thorough coaching staff.
Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to ask. What is the standard like? Were you surprised at the quality of the players when you came in?
Not so much surprised how good the players are, but I've been surprised how professional and dedicated they are. And from a coaching perspective, you can ask any coach. You can either have a talented group or you can have a group that are going to work socks off day in day out. And for me, it's always the latter, because you know that there's going to be a trajectory of improvement, and I'm seeing that day to day. The work that they put in technically, tactically, very thorough. The work that they put in from a strength and conditioning point of view is immense. Physically they're pushing themselves and driving themselves to be the best version of themselves, because they're coming from a league where the intensity is not there, the pace of the game's not there. A lot of that is weather related, but still they know that they've got to up them kind of intensities to be able to compete with the likes of Australia, Uzbekistan and Syria. So yeah, we've got a big challenge on our hands, but the boys' commitment and dedication is second to none, and I'm really pleased to be part of that.
Because I remember speaking to you about that when we were discussing you and coaching. That's one thing that you've always thought is really important, is that hard-working aspect. So that's something that was already there, was it? You didn't have to work particularly hard to instill that in this group of players?
No, that was instilled. This project for Ego and his coaching staff has been ongoing for the last 4 years, or just over 4 years. And I think, a different voice, a slightly different perspective, but also giving the same messages. And I think that's what Ego was looking for. Listen, I played in the fourth division, Kim. That's where I started. I ended up playing for England in a World Cup. So if you're not an advocate of hard work and dedication and trying to get every ounce of ability out yourself as a coach when you've done that as a player, I think you'd be an imposter. So yeah, I'm sticking to my principles with that side of things as a coach. And the players are reacting well and responding well to my ideas and my enthusiasm. Because again, as a coach, I think if you've not got enthusiasm, how do you expect the players to have that? And I've got that in abundance. I'm really grateful for this opportunity, and I'm making sure that the players know that I'm there to help them in any way I can, whether that's giving them that extra little yard in training, giving them that extra little nuance of certain situations which might help them in big game situations. Then that's what I'm there for, and obviously supporting the rest of the coaching staff, and especially Igor Stimac.
A tough 2-0 defeat to Australia in the first game, but some very good defensive work. Obviously held out until the 50th minute. I think the organisation was good, but ultimately Australia probably too strong a team. They are, of course, one of the favourites for the tournament, but lots of positives to take from that game.
There was, and yeah, you've pinpointed where we were really pleased with the boys, with their commitment and their organisation, and not so much their ability to be able to get on the end of the crosses, but the willingness to put the head in there where you could get hurt. And we've seen Sandesh, he took a knock on the eye again. He's kind of like our Braveheart at the back, middle of the defence there. He's so committed. and prepared to put his body on the line. He leads by example. He's one of the captains. He's not the captain. That's Sunil, who's obviously well known worldwide. But there's a few captains amongst the group, and Sandesh is one of them. And the way that he led by example, I think he inspired his teammates. And yeah, really pleased with that side of the game. Bit frustrated with some of the other play. We did create a couple of decent chances where a little bit more composure, a little bit more quality. We could have even taken the lead. And that obviously goals change games, and that could have really given us the impetus to hold on to that and find a way of making that first real big impact on international football and world football. Wasn't meant to be, but I do feel that day's coming for this group of players if they can continue working in the way they are. But going forward, we have a lot of improvements to make, with our composure on the ball, with our patterns playing out from the back, playing through the lines, and just having that belief. We try and replicate that intensity and that game-like match tempo in training when we do these on opposed passing drills. But when you're being pressed by players who are playing in top European leagues and they have that nuance to show you a line and then cut it off, we're just a little bit short in them areas, and that's something that we're trying to improve on for the next game against Uzbekistan.
On paper, potentially easier opponents, of course, coming off a very good run of form themselves. Now, I heard Igor say before the game that he wanted to get some better ball players further forward. So what's the thinking behind that? How are you going to approach this game?
Well, if you look at the size difference between our team and the Australian team, it's ludicrous. And the fact that we defended set pieces and crosses so well, again, massive plus points, because we can't dismiss the desire and the willingness from the players to want to compete in that area where we were massively superseded in height by the Australians. So we had to pick certain players basically on height, just so we could try and defend situation, because Australia either get the cross in when they get into situations, or they play the inverted wingers who step inside into little number 10 spaces and then play crosses, and they're successful from both areas. So we don't have that problem with Uzbekistan. We have different problems. And one of the issues that I look at this game is, yeah, you're right, in the FIFA rankings, they're not as high up the FIFA rankings as Australia are. But then we need to have the same mentality from a defensive point of view, where we want to keep a clean sheet whilst having that belief that we can create a little bit more going against Uzbekistan. So we might change personnel quite a bit for players that can offer us more in them final thirds and final third entries. But also, we need to keep that mentality where we need to fight to keep a clean sheet, to keep us in the game. And if we do that and we get the balance right, then we've got a great chance. But Uzbekistan are a fantastic team. I think they've lost a couple of games since 2021. They're on a great run of form. I think there's a lot of work going on well in the youth rankings with that international team, because the under-21s are doing exceptionally well as well. And that is obviously the recruitment area for the national teams, the 21s. And if you start to have a successful under-21s team, as we've seen with England, soon enough you're going to start getting that success in the national side. So Uzbekistan are ahead of us, and we need to respect that. But also we need to go into the game realising that we limited Australia for a large parts of that game, and we need to have that same kind of mentality from a defensive perspective. But then going forward, we need to show a lot more and showcase a lot more of what we've got going forward and in them creativity areas.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to watch that game, which is on Thursday, 2:30 British time. Just away from the football, just for a moment, just a word on the Indian fans. I saw 30,000 out there in Qatar. I saw some incredible videos circulating over social media. The passion really does seem to be there. Is that something which has surprised you?
Yeah, Kim, you know what? I wasn't surprised, only because they had a few Asian competitions in the summer, and I seen the crowd's reaction then. And I'm looking at 40, 50,000 stadiums filled out with very fanatical Indian fans. So I wasn't surprised, but it was an amazing experience walking out there, seeing 36,000 Indian fans away from home in a stadium in Qatar was something to behold. The players, I think, got energy from that. They didn't feel like they let the fans down, and I don't think the fans felt like the players let them down. But we want to repay them, and we want to get that first goal in the Asian Cup. We want to get that first points on the board, and we also want to get that first win. So, yeah, we've got a regeneration day today, so a little bit of relaxation for the boys to recover from the games, and for the players that didn't start the game, that worked really hard in training yesterday. They're having a down day where they can recover, get the massages, get the the work that they need to do, and then everyone's back after that cycle to start working again. And looking forward to the Uzbekistan game on Thursday. So yeah, rest day today, process everything, leave that behind. Any disappointments, draw a line under it, and it's all about getting prepared now for this Uzbekistan game.
And not to look too far into the future, of course, you've still got a minimum of 2 games left in the Asian Cup. But as I understand it, this role for you is just for the duration of your time in Qatar. How keen are you to extend your role there? It seems like you're really enjoying it.
Yeah, listen, I was brought in to be the assistant coach for this game, for this tournament, should I say? And I'm very grateful and honoured to do that for India and for Igor as a friend. I feel like I've integrated really well, and I've made my intentions very clear to Igor. If he needs me for the World Cup qualifiers, which are in March and June, I'll make myself available. I feel like I've built a good rapport with the players over the last 2 weeks, and would love the opportunity to continue working with them. I can see that something special is happening with the national team, and I'd love to be part of that moving forward. So yeah, that's out of my hands. All I can do is control what I'm in control of, and that's making sure that I take that enthusiasm, take that experience, and take that kind of expertise of knowing what it takes to play and perform at real big stadiums, big tournaments, and high intensity football. And if I can pass any little tips on to the players, then yeah, I think it'd be an absolute pleasure to continue from my perspective.
Yeah, and you mentioned there about something special happening, and even myself, I can see it both with the attendances in Qatar and the rise in attendances of the Indian Super League. It seems like something special could be happening in Indian football, and with a population of 1.4 billion people and never having any Indian success, whether that's good former players, it doesn't seem to particularly match up. What do you think the ceiling is, not only for the team that you're currently coaching, but for Indian football players in general?
Well, listen, when you've got 1.4 billion people, I don't think there is a ceiling, but it depends what happens below the national team. We're talking about the 16s, 18s, 21s. I feel that if they want to take football serious as a nation, and they want to jump up them FIFA rankings and give themselves better opportunities in the future, give the fans better experiences, big games and big wins in the future, if they invest into them youth areas, because that's the pathway. You're looking at the Indian Super League. Yeah, I think you've got 4 foreign players that can play, and it's quite an interesting way that Indian players, they have to have a nationality, they have to have the nationality, they have to have the passport, they have to rescind the passport from any other nationality before they can and play in the Indian Super League for 12 months before they're considered for the national team. So there's a lot of things that they're asking players to do. But I think they've put that aside, park that one up. If you can start really investing into the youth teams, the 16s, the 18s, the 21s, I think we'll see players that are coming into the national side through that pathway with more experience of playing against European and international opposition. And then I think you'll start seeing a better pedigree of player coming through to the national team. But at the moment, listen, these guys are doing exceptional. They're working exceptionally hard. The due diligence and the preparation that they're putting into every game is second to none. And, I really do feel we've still got a chance to qualify for the knockout stages in the Asian Cup 23.
Yeah, and I suppose that's part of it as well, isn't it? It's the culture of Indian football. And in a way, that provides a little bit more pressure on your and Igor's shoulders. If you can provide a moment in this Asian Cup, you can influence the next generation and inspire young Indians into thinking that football and professional football is a viable route for them.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to inspire the next generation to believe that it's a career choice and it's achievable. But again, you can't go from playing, not to be disrespectful, but playing, normal youth team football to all of a sudden jumping on an international tournament and expecting to win games. But listen, it's tangible. I can see that this group of players, the talent that they've got, and also the hard work and the togetherness, the spirit in this squad is insane. So I can see that there is a result in these boys, and if that is what's needed to empower both Igor, the coaching staff, and the federation to say, you know what, we've got some good players. We've got fantastic fans, and we need to give them the best chance to experience success. We need to start investing in them youth teams for the national team to then get even better products. Then I think it'll empower us and it'll empower the fans as well to demand that.
Obviously, when we were both working at Talksport, I used to speak to you every week on club football matters. So just away from Indian football, just for a moment, I'd just like to ask you a couple of questions on your former teams. First off, being West Ham, sixth in the league, breezed through the Europa League group, won the Europa Conference last year, but still a few clamours saying maybe David Moyes doesn't deserve his contract extension and things like that. What do you make of that?
I think it's just noise. I think West Ham fans are, I think, traditionally quite difficult to please. We talk about the West Ham way. For me, David Moyes is doing superb. The West Ham way should be winning football matches, challenging for European positions, playing in Europe, and entertaining the fans. And I think that's what they're doing. At times when we play against bigger teams, so to speak, your Manchester Cities, your Liverpools, the teams where David Moyes traditionally has not done very well against. I can understand the frustration from the fans. They just want to take the shackles off and go head to head. That's where you start seeing the 4 or 5 nils, and I don't think David Moyes wants to feel that experience anymore, and he doesn't want his players. So in a way, he's protecting his players by being a little bit more defensive with the way he plays against some of these big teams. But in general, I think the consistency that West Ham have shown over the last 2 or 3 years under David Moyes has been exceptional. I think the board, Sullivan and the rest of them understand how valuable David Moyes is and the way that he's running this team and his coaching staff is. And I think the noise is just that. I think it's just the fans. I think the owners, the directors, the players are very pleased with David Moyes, and you can see that on the pitch. They reflect that on the pitch with the performances, and long may it continue. David lives in my little village in Lytham, and I bump into him from time to time, and I'm a huge fan of his. He's a very humble man, and I wish him well.
So fair to say you don't think that West Ham fans have a reason to be angry. Now, one team that probably does is your other former club, Queen's Park Rangers, sitting 23rd in the Championship. It's kind of gone from bad to worse since Michael Beale left Queen's Park Rangers for Glasgow Rangers. I mean, is there any saving their season this year?
It's a really tough one. I speak to Paul Hall, who's on the coaching staff there from time to time. We've got a brand new training facility. New manager, a lot of positives at the football club off the field, but the results speak for themselves. Not been good enough. I think there's been a lot of injury problems throughout the squad, and key players that can really win football matches. But it's looking grim. It's not looking good, and they need to turn it around because QPR dropping out of the Championship. It's not as simple as that. It's not easy to bounce back out of League One. I'm looking at Bolton at the moment. They're flying. I think they're in second or third position, maybe a game or two in hand. And one of our players from my own academy plays, George Thomason, and it's a difficult league to get out of. And on top of that, there'll be players that'll be looking to get out, thinking that they shouldn't be playing in League One. So at all costs, they've got to try and stay up. It's pretty sad to see my old side in the position that they're in grave danger of being relegated from the Championship.
Yeah, really worrying signs for Queen's Park Rangers and for their fans. Still sitting 23rd in the table. It does not look good. Now, another one of your former sides suffering completely the opposite fate is treble-winning Manchester City. Kevin De Bruyne now back from injury, and we saw what he did against Newcastle at the weekend. Erling Haaland, of course, to come back into the fray. With City now firing on all cylinders, not suffering from injuries to key players anymore, can you see anyone else challenging them for the title?
Not really, if I'm being honest. Because, Kim, with Manchester City, this squad, the manager, the club, they finish seasons really strongly. And we can see them going on a 16, 18 game unbeaten run where, they're winning most of them games. Whether Liverpool can live with that and any of the other sides, I'm not sure. But I think just the key players, Haaland's back very soon. Kevin back with a bang. And then you've got young players like Oscar Bob, who's turning in pieces of magic in only, one of his first handful of games. Phil Foden's playing out of his skin. I think all Manchester City fans have known what he's got in the locker. There's been a few sceptical people in football that have never really bought into Phil Foden. But since he was a young lad playing for the young England sides, and obviously the 18s and 23s for Manchester City, I've known what he's got, as most City fans have, and special player. And I just feel we possibly could be even stronger than we were last season. Still in the FA Cup, that'll be a good game against Spurs. Got a really good run in to come for the Premier League. But as you know, this is the time that Manchester City start to zone in and really get focused on, one, winning the Premier League, two, any other silverware that's up for grabs, and obviously in a great position in the Champions League. So I'm not going to tempt fate, but I think they're in a really good position. I think the fact that Kevin's been enforced to a long rest through injury, he looks like he's got the bit between his teeth now, and he feels maybe people have forgotten about his qualities, and he's already shown us in the first half an hour of football in the Premier League what we've missed. And he's a generational player, and everything's looking very positive for Manchester City. Extraordinary. But listen, we should never have doubted him. Anyone who doubted him doesn't know Kevin De Bruyne. One thing that he is, he's a competitor, and he wants to win. And he's had that kind of DNA through his blood from when he was a kid. And Manchester City are definitely benefiting from that.